Deep dives and blue skies. Welcome back to Talking Blue with Nick, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking Blue, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find. I am your host, Nick. You are listening to episode 94 of Talking Blue. Today, we're going to recap the Dodgers and the Cardinals series, which just wrapped up a few hours ago. And as you can see by the title of the video, what I'm also going to get into is two players that have struggled, especially in this series. Emmet, Sheehan, who started on Friday, I'm going to get into him, and then Kyle Tucker, who's more obviously just been a struggle really for the entirety of the first month of the season. I'm going to get into those two guys, break those guys down. What are they doing differently? Why have they struggled? Can they get out of it? All that kind of stuff. And as always, I'll recap the games and do all that kind of stuff. So before that, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can follow us on all social media at Talkin' Blue Pod. You can follow myself at Nick Talkin' Ball on X. Let's get into the first game. Friday night, Emmet Sheehan taking the ball against the left-hander Matthew Liberatore. So scoring gets underway. In the bottom of the first inning, right away off of Emmet Sheehan, a two-run shot off the bat of Nolan Gorman, which makes it a 3-0 game. There was a balk right before this that scored a run, so it's 3-0 Cardinals in the first inning. Dodgers would get a run back, though, in the top of the second thanks to a double from Max Muncy. But later on in the third inning, a solo shot off the bat of Alec Burleson would make it 4-1. Kyle Tucker would chip in with a sac fly to cut that deficit in half. It's a 4-2 game. But then in the seventh inning, this is where the game kind of gets away from the Dodgers. Edgardo Henriquez now in, a double from Jordan Walker, who just cooked the Dodgers this series. Cardinals go up 6-2, and then a RBI ground out from Nathan Church makes it 7-2. Cardinals win. Dodgers drop their third straight game. They drop the series opener. Cardinals win by a score of 7-2. Emmet Sheehan for 4 2/3, Jack Dreyer 1 1/3, Edgardo Henriquez 1 inning, and then Kyle Hurt for 1. Matthew Liberatore pitched pretty good against the Dodgers. He went 5 2/3, only allowed 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Dodgers were not able to muster anything against the Cardinals. Pretty solid bullpen. So we'll start and we'll talk mainly about Emmet Sheehan. All right, we're going to get into Emmet. I'm going to break him down. I talked to you guys a week ago. Emmet had his best start of the year against the Cubs, where he pitched, I believe, 6 innings, shutout ball, 10 strikeouts, 21 whiffs, no walks, just completely dominated the Cubs. Looked really electric. Okay, if you look at Emmet's numbers on the season now, we're obviously a month into the year. He has 6 starts under his belt, 31 innings pitched. He has a 5.23 ERA, all right? A whip of 1.32. So it's not been a great start for Sheehan. I told you guys again last week after that great start, I told you that I was confident in Sheehan as the season would progress. He was going to progress, get better and better, and his numbers would look good. We are still in a questionable scenario situation with Sheehan. But I give you some numbers that kind of explain why he struggled, but also kind of show you my optimism as to why I think Sheehan is going to be fine. All right, so in this start, I will give you his final line against the Cardinals. 4 2/3, 8 hits, which is way too many, 4 earned runs, no walks, 8 strikeouts. He allowed 2 home runs. All right, so the good and the bad of this start. He had 8 strikeouts. That's great. And he had 19 whiffs, which is great. So the swing and miss he brought along to St. Louis. But obviously, allowing 8 hits and 2 home runs is bad, and that is a recipe for disaster. When you dive into a lot of Emmet's stats, a lot of them are actually similar to what he did a year ago when he had in about 70 innings pitched, he had an ERA under 3, a 2.82 ERA, got a ton of whiffs and strikeouts a year ago. It was limited sample size, but he did have a very good year. If you take a look at a lot of his underlying metrics, they are actually very similar to what he was doing a year ago. There is really just one thing that stands out at Emmet that kind of contributes to his struggles this year. Other than that, and I'll get to it. So when you look at his average exit velocity, all right, the quality of contact, 2025, it was 89.3 miles an hour. Right now, it's 87.9 miles an hour. So it's actually a little bit of an improvement. His chase rate, All right, his chase rate, his whiff rate, and his strikeout percentage. Those are the things that Emmet has always been elite at, and he is still elite at that. All right, he had a 32.8% chase rate last year. Right now, it's at 35.7. That is seventh best in Major League Baseball. Seventh best chase rate. His whiff rate, 32.9 in 2025. Right now, it is at 32.8. That is sixth best in Major League Baseball. His strikeout rate, 30.6%. That was in 2025. Right now it's at 27.3. That is 22nd best in Major League Baseball. Anytime you have a K rate that is close to, at, or above 30%, that's very good. You're striking out a good amount of hitters. Like I said, 30% K rate last year, 27% right now. So he's still getting strikeouts and whiffs. His walk rate has actually been an improvement from a year ago. 7.6% walk rate, 2025, 2026, 6.8. So he's actually in terms of the percentage, is allowing less walks. His barrel percentage, his hard hit rate, and his ground ball percentage. These are things Emmett's never been that great at, but still, 2025, a 10.1% barrel rate. Right now it's at 9.3. I know it's very small, but it is an improvement in the barrel rate. Hard hit rate, 41.6 in 2025. Right now, 40.7. Okay? Ground ball percentage, 33%. Last year, right now it's at 41.9. He's never been a big ground ball guy, but the ground balls have improved. So if I read you all those numbers, and I didn't tell you what his ERA was and all that stuff, you probably guess that Sheehan is having the same year, that he had a year ago, or maybe he's even improved a little bit. But obviously that's not the case because his ERA is over 5. So the question is, if all those stats are very similar to what he did in 2025, why is he struggling? The reason for his struggles are his four-seam fastball. His four-seam fastball has gone completely backwards. All right, so to start, the velocity. In 2025, a 95.5 mile per hour was the average on his four-seam fastball, 95.6. Right now, it is 94.1. So down a mile and a half from what he was at a year ago. All right, so in 2025, the batting average against on his four-seam fastball was 214. All right, that's pretty good. His four-seam fastball has a -6 run value. That is 7th worst in Major League Baseball. A 412 batting average against on his four-seam fastball, 10th highest among all pitches in Major League Baseball. 882 slugging percentage. That is 5th highest among all pitches in Major League Baseball. His four-seam fastball is giving up a ton of damage right now. Meatball percentage. All right, I know that's a funny name, but it's a stat that shows percentages of pitches thrown right down the middle. Meatball percentage. In 2025, he had a 5.1% meatball percentage. Right now, it's at 8.3. All right. Pull air percentage. 18% last year. Right now, 32.6. So obviously, what do fly balls that are pulled do? What do those lead to? Home runs. So he's throwing more fastballs in the middle of the zone, giving up more balls that are being pulled and hit in the air. Those are leading to home runs. Emmet allowed 7 home runs in 73 innings pitched in 2025. In 2026, he's allowed 6 in just 31 innings. All right, so where it all the struggles have come with Emmet all stem from his fastball being way more hittable. The velocity is down on that pitch, and it is giving up a ton of slug. Velocity concerns, is Emmet injured? I don't really know what's gone on there. With Blake Snell returning in a couple weeks, it does create a little bit of question marks about who goes where. Does somebody kick to the bullpen? Does somebody get sent down? Blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't be shocked if we see I don't want to call it a phantom IL, but if we see something shoulder fatigue IL stint for Sheehan to maybe get his velocity under control. But the thing that leads me to believe he'll be fine is that everything outside of that fastball has been fine. He's still getting the elite amount of strikeouts and whiffs and chase. All the other things that he's never really gotten before, like barrel percentage, hard hit rates, ground balls. He's never really been a guy that's gotten that stuff, so that's not really much of a difference. And there's even other numbers on here that have slightly improved. So really, if Emmet can somehow find a way to get his fastball more in line, I think he'll be fine. And so again, maybe, if he could go on the IL or whatever, just get something figured out with his velocity ticking back up, that will probably help, obviously, with the fastball numbers being better overall. So that is all the info I have on Emmet. It really is his fastball issues right now, which is why he's been very bad and very inconsistent. But what I'll leave you guys with is that I think he'll be okay, and I think he'll get it figured out at some point. So the last thing with this game, something we've seen a lot of the last week and a half, 2 weeks with the Dodgers offense, weren't able to muster anything together. 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position. They left 8 runners on base and just didn't do anything. Nothing, really. And Edgardo Henriquez, any chance of potentially coming back in this game was put to bed in that 7th inning where he allowed a walk, couple hits, and Cardinals really put the game out of reach from there. So pretty lame game to start the series. But let's go to game 2. Roki Sasaki against Michael McGreevy. All right. All eyes on Sasaki with the adjustment that he made with the splitter a week ago against the Cubs. All right, so let's go to that game. The Cardinals get on the board first in the bottom of the 3rd inning. Alec Burleson doubles into right field to put them up 1-0. A couple batters later, Jordan Walker, again, who just smoked the Dodgers this weekend. He homers to left field to make it a 3-0 game. Dodgers would be held scoreless until the top of the 9th inning, I should say. Max Muncy hits a single to bring in Kyle Tucker, who then was brought in, or I should say Muncy was brought in by Andy Pages to make it a 3-2 game. Dodgers, though, were not able to bring in that tying run. Dalton Rushing came into pinch hit, and he struck out, and the game ended. Dodgers lose again. 4th straight loss. They lose by a score of 3-2. Michael McGreevy threw 6 innings of no-run ball. 0 earned runs, only allowed 3 hits. Again, Dodgers were not able to muster anything against the Cardinals bullpen until the 9th inning where they got 2 earned runs off of O'Brien, the really good surprise reliever that the Cardinals have, the closer. So let's get to Sasaki first. 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. He allowed 1 home run. It's funny because Sasaki has continued to really struggle. So when he actually has a start like this, a guy goes 6 innings pitched and only allows 3 earned runs, that's actually a very solid start. But, so there's like kind of negatives and positives to take from it. Unfortunately, given the low expectations, it's not really a bad start. But obviously, we know that Sasaki still hasn't really pitched that good. So he continued the new revamped splitter. All right. Again, the goal with that pitch was to get it in the strike zone more. He got it up to a zone percentage on that splitter was 40% in this game. Previously, last week against the Cubs was 42%. I think the highest I said was something in the 20s. So he's continued to get that pitch more in the zone. And something I've also noticed is that the new splitter has kind of dropped the usage rate on the slider that he has. All right, it's only in these last 2 starts, he's only thrown the slider 13.5%. On the year, he throws that 20% of the time. So he, figuring out this new splitter that he's throwing has definitely brought down the slider usage. I don't know how much I love that because that really takes him to like a 2-pitch pitcher. But what I did, what I kind of asked last time was, does Sasaki, do we get to a point where he uses the hard splitter, the low 90s, high 80s splitter that he's now using, and does he also use the forkball, the slow mid 80s forkball? He did throw a couple of forkballs in this game, so that does kind of show that he might have the ability to attack hitters with a splitter and a forkball, 2 different kind of pitches. So if he's able to mix that into the fold and maybe the slider, that kind of gives him like a 4-pitch mix. I actually do like that. So that'll be the question going forward. I actually, when I was watching the start, didn't see him throw any, but I know there was a lot of talk on Twitter. And if you just go over and look at it averaged 88 miles an hour in this game. Like we've said a lot with Sasaki, was it a great start? Absolutely not. Is it a step in the right direction? I do kind of feel like he is starting to step in the right direction these last 2 starts. I do think that this new splitter, I do think there is something here with this splitter, getting it in the zone more and just getting his overall, all his pitches in the zone more. I do think that will help. The problem with Roki, very similar to Emmet Sheehan, is that his fastball is just so bad. So I told you how Emmett's fastball was like 7th or 8th worst in Major League Baseball. Sasaki's has the second worst pitch in Major League Baseball. That is his four-seam fastball. A -8 run value on that pitch. That is second worst in the entire sport. So his fastball has been bad. It just keeps getting hit around. It's very odd because he obviously throws very hard. It really just seems like it's all location with him. He's never really been able to get that fastball up. I really think that Sasaki, when I watch him pitch, kind of doesn't know how to use his fastball to get outs. A lot of pitchers use their fastballs in different ways. Most of the time, if you're trying to get outs with that pitch, you throw it upstairs, which he did throw a nice upstairs fastball in that first inning of this game to get out of a jam to Nolan Gorman. But, a year ago when Sasaki pitched well in the postseason, one of the ways that he was using his four-seam fastball successfully was that he was throwing it down in the zone. When you're a splitter ball pitcher you really use that pitch like as your out pitch, sometimes the best way to do it is to tunnel that four-seam fastball down in the zone. So when you throw the splitter, it is tunneled off of that pitch and it can just fall off the table, kind of like off that same tunnel that the fastball is coming out. The splitter drops right below that. So, Sasaki seems that he has not figured out like how to set up his fastball, how to use it, up in the zone, down in the zone. He's not throwing any sinkers. So that is really the issue that I see with his fastball, because again, you see a guy who can touch 99 and 100 and you think, how does he have a bad four-seam fastball? One, hitters, you hear Oral Hershiser say this a lot on the broadcast, hitters can time up a bullet. So it doesn't matter how hard you throw. It's really how do you use that pitch? How does it play off your other off-speed pitches, your breaking balls, your splitter? Can you throw it upstairs, downstairs? Do you throw it away, live on the corners? Yamamoto is someone who pitches like that. So that is really the biggest thing with his fastball. Is I really think that he has no idea how to use it right now to get outs. I think that the best way to use it would be to tunnel that pitch off your four-seam fastball and throw down in the zone. But that is something that him and the Dodgers have to figure out. As we've been saying with Sasaki all year so far in the early month of this year, a work in progress. I kind of think he's starting to step in the right direction, but, he's a long ways away from being a good starter at this point. And at this rate, we're just going to get to a point where later in the year, he's just going to have to go back to the bullpen or something like that. So we'll see. We'll see. I am intrigued, though, with the splitter, the new splitter. If he is able to, because he actually left a couple up in this game. The home run that he gave up to Jordan Walker was on a splitter that he left up. So we'll see. He's going to get his chances. I do think that things will get a little complicated when Snell comes back, but I think Sasaki's going to be in the bullpen and they're going to give him a chance. So again, we'll talk about the offense now. Just like the game before and the last couple weeks, offense did absolutely nothing for 8 innings, 2 for 6 with runners in scoring position, 6 runners left on base. Outside of Teoscar Hernandez and Max Muncy, they had 4 hits in this game. This was the double play game, or at least I thought it was going to be, because the Dodgers in this series grounded into a ton of double plays. I'm pretty sure I saw on X that they grounded into 8 double plays this weekend, which is like tied a record for one series. So that sucks because the Cardinals are a great defensive team. It just felt like J.J. Weatherholt and Mason Wynn were just turning double plays. It was like infield practice the entire series. They just kept turning double plays every freaking game. Since the start of April 21st, all right, this is 11 games. This doesn't include the game that wrapped up today on Sunday. So, but the 11 games dates back to April 21st. All right, this goes back to the Giants series in San Francisco. The Dodgers are dead last in slugging percentage, last in OPS, second to last in weighted runs created plus, last in home runs, and third worst in runs. So they have been pitiful offensively the last week and a half, 2 weeks. A lot of guys have gone into slumps. There's not really anyone on the team that has been swinging it well, pretty much outside of like Max Muncy. Dalton Rushing has continued to swing the bat well. Hae-Sung Kim. But a lot of guys. Shohei, Kyle Tucker, who hasn't been great all year so far. Freddie Freeman went into a slump. Will Smith. Andy Paz has even cooled off. There was a lot of really poor at-bats in this game specifically and throughout this whole series. Andy Paz has definitely cooled off. He did hit a double, and I'll get to this in the third game. But Pages is starting to slowly come back to that chasing way too much. There was a multiple at-bats in this series where Pages was like refusing to walk, chasing pitches down, chasing pitches in the dirt. So the Dodgers really need to like lock their approach in and remember that the best way, the Dodger way, if there is a Dodger way, offensively, it is being patient at the plate, not chasing out of the strike zone, waiting for that pitch to crush, because, you know, Pages, Teoscar, like a couple of those guys are chasing a lot, and it's not looking great offensively right now. So they did have a little bit of that comeback in the ninth inning, which you're hopeful that leads to some offense the next day. But, of course, it's also like a little bit of a fake comeback just to get your hopes up that they were going to come back and win. But anyways, let's go to Game 3. Sunday, Justin Robleski taking on Dustin May, old friend Dustin May. Would you actually believe these are the two least? These two pitchers get the least amount of whiffs of everyone in Major League Baseball. Least amount of swing and miss, Dustin May 2, Justin Robleski 1. All right, so let's get to that game. All right, Dodgers got on the board first in this game. It's about time. Second inning, Anthony Pages doubles into left field to make it 1-0. A couple batters later, Hae-Sung Kim, who had a pretty solid series himself, he singles up the middle to make it 2-0 Dodgers. Later on in the fifth inning, Justin Robleski has the Cardinals held scoreless. Freddie Freeman hits a single up the middle to now make it 3-0. Dodgers have a nice 3-0 lead. Cardinals would get on the board in the bottom of the eighth inning, and Alec Burleson's single would make it 3-1. But then a Alex Call single into left field, he pinch hit, makes it 4-1. Dodgers would get the win. Tanner Scott actually came in to get the save. He had 2 strikeouts. He's looked pretty solid ever since giving up that home run a week ago to Dansby Swanson. Justin Robleski for 6, Will Klein for 1.2, Blake Trinan for 1/3 of an inning. He got 1 out. Tanner Scott for the save. Dodgers get their first win since Monday when they walked off the Marlins. They win by a score of 4-1. Let's talk about Justin Robleski, the dog that he is. Justin Robleski continues to be somehow he's just pitching amazing. I don't really even know how he's doing it. He had a pretty crazy start today. 6 innings pitched, 6 hits allowed, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, 0 strikeouts. He did not get 1 strikeout. That is pretty insane. He continues to rely on basically 2 pitches. It is 80% forcing fastball or slider, and he'll mix in an occasional curveball. He only had 4 whiffs on the entire day. Robleski is basically the pitcher that gets the least amount of swing and miss in Major League Baseball, like I said, him and Dustin May. But Robleski continues to roll, getting no whiffs or no strikeouts, but who cares? The lowest whiff percentage in Major League Baseball. His ERA is down to 1.25. That is second in all of Major League Baseball. With some questions that are soon to be answered in this rotation, with Snell's return, Sasaki and Sheehan's struggles, like talked about earlier, he is making a great case, as good a case as you could, to keep his spot in the rotation. I don't know how it's going to all play out. Obviously, Snell's going to come back and go into the rotation. One of those 3 guys is going to have to come out. Will it be, Sheehan going to the IL, Robleski going to the bullpen? I don't think it's Sasaki going to the bullpen. A lot of people think that would be the most logical reason. I don't think that's what's going to happen. All you can do when the Dodgers call on you, even though you're a guy who's kind of on their lower totem pole of trust and projections and all that, all you can do is go out there and pitch as good as you can and make it hard for them to make those decisions, and he's done exactly that. Who would have guessed that Justin Robleski, of all the Dodger pitchers, would have the second best ERA in Major League Baseball going into the second week of May? That is amazing. He is so far an amazing piece to have, because I don't know if he's going to stay in the rotation all year. If he ends up going to the bullpen, becoming a long man reliever, eating innings, doesn't matter. I really have come around on Robleski, where it wasn't that long, about a year ago, where I wasn't really the biggest fan of him. He, I know his expected numbers aren't great. Usually when you don't have a lot of strikeouts, Your expected numbers don't love you, but there is something to say that you can get outs at the big league level with weak contact, with ground balls. If you throw strikes, if you pound the strike zone, which he does, if you get quick outs and all that kind of stuff, that can be valuable. He is putting that to the test right now. Will he continue this? Like I said a week ago, absolutely not. He will not have an ERA sub 2. At some point, it's hard to do something like that when the ball's being put in play that much. There's just, even if you're not even, even if he doesn't regress and start giving up like a ton of hard contact, the contact, you could just get unlucky. Balls can get through holes in the infield, errors, all that kind of stuff. So he won't continue this, but I got to give him credit. He has been amazing, and he's going to be a valuable piece for this team going forward. A guy who, without question, deserves to be in the rotation. I don't know if he'll get it, but Robleski is a dog. Last thing before we get to Kyle Tucker and wrap up this video, the offense finally did a little something. 4 for 10 with runners in scoring position in this game. Freddie Freeman, Haesung Kim each had 2 hits and an RBI, so they had pretty solid series. I know Freddie Freeman's OPS is still 752. Actually had a pretty solid series where he came in like struggling pretty bad, had 2 hits today, had an RBI. Teoscar Hernandez had a couple more hits in this series. Hopefully that gets him going. The Dodgers offense overall really needs to get going. We're going into Houston tomorrow to take on the Astros, who are about as bad as it gets when it comes to team ERA. They have horrible pitching, bullpen, everything. So there really is no reason to not go into Houston and put up some runs. Now, the Astros themselves can swing it. So, but the best way to counter that is the Dodgers are going to have their 3-headed ace going into Houston. You're going to get Yamamoto Monday, Shohei Tuesday, Glasnow Wednesday. So, the Dodgers right now have a great recipe to walk out of Houston with some wins. They got a great offense that should, I know they're not great right now, but they have the potential great offense going into a park where the ball flies and a team that doesn't have great pitching. And they have the pitching to neutralize the other team's great offense. Anyways, let's go to the man that used to play for the Houston Astros, Kyle Tucker. So similarly to Emmet Sheehan, I'm going to break him down. Why is he struggling early on? Again, just like Sheehan, I am even more so than Sheehan. I'm confident that Tucker's going to figure this out. But we do got to talk about his struggles. And I'm going to break it down. Why has he struggled? Okay, because Tucker's been as consistent as it gets at the big league level. So right off the rip, the barrel percentage is down from 10.8% in 2025 to 7.4 in 2026. So about a 3% drop in barrel rate. His average exit velocity is down from 90.1 to 88.9 from a year ago. All right. His expected WOBA, weighted on base average, a very good analytical stat. 372 last year. It is 318 in 2026. Expected slug. All right. 483 expected slug in 2025. 377 right now in 26. One of the things that stands out right away when I get into my deep dive with Kyle Tucker is his numbers against left-handed pitching. He had an 837, an 837 OPS in his career versus left-handed pitching. Right now, it is 649. All right, left-handers are just eating him alive. In his career, he has only a 14.6% K rate versus left-handed pitching. All right, that's very good. Right now, it's at 24.2%. So a 10% increase in K rate versus left-handed pitching. All right. His chase percentage, so swinging at pitches out of the strike zone, which Tucker has been one of the more elite hitters in the game at not swinging at pitches out of the zone. His chase percentage has increased from 17.6% in 2025 to 24.8% in 2026. Now, it should be noted that he still has a very good chase rate. He is still in the 73rd percentile, I think, in chase rate. So he is still one of the better hitters in the game at not chasing, but it has dropped from being like elite to just kind of like really good, solid, Another thing that stands out to me, by far the highest first pitch swing percentage of his career this year. He normally is a guy who's in the high 30s, 40% at swinging at the first pitch. He has a 41.3% career first pitch swing rate. Right now, it's at 51.1%. Half the time he is swinging at the first pitch of the at-bat, which is okay. You can be aggressive like that, but it obviously is going to change your overall walk numbers. Usually guys who walk a lot are a bit more patient, kind of like Mookie Betts, Max Muncy. Those are guys you don't see swing at the first pitch very often. So it's not a huge surprise why his chase numbers have dropped off a bit. I would imagine that's part of it. He's being a little bit more aggressive on the first pitch. And, at the end of the day, regardless of your approach, whether you're a guy who loves to swing at the first pitch, Dodger fans remember Corey Seager, he always swings at the first pitch. Other guys, Mookie Betts, is almost an automatic take every time he steps up there. First pitch is almost an automatic take every time. There is really no one way to go about it. I prefer the little bit of the more patient approach. But at the end of the day, regardless of the count, the best way you could hit at the major league level is swinging at strikes and taking balls. You take the count out of it. So if it's a first pitch strike, you swing at it. If it's a first pitch ball, you take it. Now, obviously, I'm a guy who's sitting in my room in front of a computer making it sound like it's that easy. Of course, it is not that easy. All right, I just want to put that out there. I understand that is not that simple. Hey, just take balls and swing at strikes. That's just my feeling, is that it doesn't really matter if you're a guy who likes to swing at the first pitch, take the first pitch, whatever the case. If you can just simply say, hey, I'm swinging at strikes and I'm taking balls, and you can kind of take the count out of it, that's pretty much the best way I think you should really approach hitting. Also has a increased whiff rate. So 23.2 whiff percentage right now is the highest in his career since 2019. As a result, he has the highest K percentage, or the first time since 2020 that he has a K rate over 20%. All right, which is still very good. Usually a high K rate is when you start to get to like 25, 30%. So he's normally in the like 14, 15% K rate range. So it's an increase, not like crazy, but it is notable. The K rate is up. Now, when you dig a little bit deeper, he has been chasing some individual pitches. So he chased four-seam fastballs in 2025 at a 13.5% rate. Right now in 2026, a 36.5% chase rate on four-seam fastballs. So he's chasing four-seam fastballs out of the zone right now at a much higher clip, basically a 20% increase in his chase rate and four-seam fastballs. I would imagine he's chasing four-seam fastballs up out of the zone. Same thing with sliders. 14.4% chase rate last year. Right now it's at 26.4% in 2026. So a couple pitches that he's chasing out of the zone right now. Again, I would imagine, and I know just from watching the games myself, he is chasing sliders from those left-handed hitters down in the zone right now. All right, and he's chasing fastballs up. Another thing that stands out to me is what Kyle Tucker is doing in the zone. Obviously, as a hitter, when you go up to the plate, you are trying to get pitches in the strike zone to do damage with. All right, you can't really do much with pitches outside of the strike zone. In 2024, which was the best season of his career, not for a full season because he was injured, but just like a rate per the percentages and all that stuff, his slash line, that was the best he's ever been. He hit 314 on pitches in the strike zone in 2024. 2025, last year, he hit 287 on pitches in the strike zone. Right now, he is hitting 266 on pitches in the strike zone in 2026. MLB average is 277. All right, so this is a superstar hitter, a really good all-star player who is really not handling pitches in the strike zone right now. If you're not hitting pitches in the strike zone and you're not doing damage, your numbers are not going to be great. And the fact that he's basically below what the league is hitting is not a good sign, okay? What he needs to get back to is obviously doing pitches in the hitting pitches in the strike zone, not missing his pitch and doing damage. But really what I think it is improving, kind of getting back to the norms with his chase rates. I think he needs to be a little bit more patient. I don't know why his first pitch swing percentage has increased like 15%. I don't mind guys who swing at the first pitch. It's just that, I prefer a little bit more of the patient approach. But, right now, I think what all these numbers kind of show, the chase rate, especially on the four-seamer and the slider, missing some pitches in the zone, I think what it shows is that Tucker's pressing. All right, obviously Kyle Tucker came to the Dodgers, one of the biggest contracts, short-term AAV contracts in baseball history, the highest paid player in the game this year. A lot of pressure on him, even though he's going to a team where he is like the third or fourth guy you think of. Shohei Ohtani is the man. This is Shohei's team, right? he didn't have that kind of pressure on him that he needed to come into a team and kind of be the savior like he was last year with the Cubs. But he obviously has the pressure on him that, like, hey, you're the guy that got all this money. You're coming into a team that's already proven, we don't have to prove to you that we can win. You got to prove to us that you belong here and you can play with these kind of guys. So I would imagine that the chasing, the increased chase and swing and miss rates, I think that just means he's pressing and probably trying to do a little bit too much, maybe a little bit antsy, you know what I mean? Stepping up at the plate, swinging at that first pitch. He wants to, get on base right away, get his pitch to hit right away. So I would imagine that's part of it. He still has a great process at the plate. He still walks. He still, even with the increased whiff rates and, the increased chase rates and all that stuff, he still, doesn't chase at a super high rate, walks at a good rate. So just like I said with Emmet Sheehan, I think Tucker is going to be fine. I think he's actually very close to breaking out. He had a good amount of hard hit balls in this series against the Cardinals. He had a double in this game on Sunday, and then he had a couple hard hit lineouts. So I do think that he's going to start to break out. I wouldn't be shocked to see him have a big series in Houston, obviously his former team. Last year, actually, when he was with the Cubs and they went to Houston, first time since he was obviously traded, he had a big series in that series. I think it was a weekend series in Houston. So I would expect him to break out soon. I'm not really worried about him long term, but like I said before, I'm just kind of antsy to see him get going. So just interesting stuff that I was able to find. His numbers against lefties, the swing and miss numbers, and really the thing that you gotta, it's not scary, but like the thing is with his numbers when it comes to hitting pitches in the strike zone, 266 batting average on pitches in the strike zone. So he's below average right now. So you can't miss your hit. You can't miss your pitch in the zone. I mean, again, it's easy for me to sit up here and say stuff like that, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Dodgers found a way to get that win, avoid the sweep. The offense is not great right now. Obviously, the starting pitching you still believe in, and they're great. So I think the at-bat quality has to get better this week in Houston, and then the Dodgers actually play the Braves next weekend at home. So the Braves are the hottest, best team in the game right now. They'll be coming into LA ready for the challenge to go up against the Dodgers. So the at-bat quality is what I need to see in this next series with the Astros. Andy Paez, Teoscar Hernandez, Will Smith, when he's in there. Freddie Freeman. Shohei has also had some bad at-bats. He had a at-bat, I think it was Saturday night, where he just took a fastball right down the middle, chasing a couple pitches. I need to see some better at-bat quality. I feel like a lot of guys are pressing right now, chasing, a little bit of uncharacteristic at-bats. I think it was a little bit better in this game Sunday. A couple guys had some, nice at-bats, Freddie Freeman, Ha-Seong Kim, Max Muncy. So I need the offense, and I need this lineup to put some better at-bats together in Houston. All right, take advantage of a pitching staff that is not good, that is vulnerable, a ballpark where the ball will fly. You got your three guys on the mound, Yamamoto, Ohtani, Glasnow. So, you know that they're going to put up it's going to be tough for the opposing team to put up runs against them. So you just the at-bat quality has to improve. So that is all I have for you guys. As always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. We'll see you guys in a couple days. I'll be back to recap the Astros and the Dodgers this Thursday.